Hi, my name is Steve Rees Davies. I'm the Joint Global Head of the Technology and Innovation team at Appleby. I also head up the team here in Bermuda, where we focus on digital asset and Digital Asset Business Act. This brief video is an introduction intended as a fundamental introduction as to the Digital Asset Business Act of Bermuda. What I want you to go away with from this video is why we have it, what is it, and why might it affect or benefit you. I think some context is worthwhile first. Why do we have it? When blockchain as a technology became world known, when it became really into the sort of the consumer area, when governments and regulators around the world realized that it really was in existence and being used, the fear for the regulators and governments was really around fraud, money laundering, terrorist financing. Not exciting subject, but that is where the focus was. This isn't the forum to debate whether or not those allegations against blockchain were correct. It's merely the context as to why regulation has now come about. The fraud fear was really around people raising capital through means other than the securities laws that existed. And therefore the opportunity for fraud was high. The risk of fraud was very high. Money laundering and terrorist financing was all around the fact that any of these businesses or anybody in this sector didn't have to ask for ID or KYC on anyone. And therefore, anybody could get through this without being followed, traced, or known, other than the technical way that we all know that you can trace through blockchain. The fear was there, and the Bermuda government saw an opportunity. One was to protect the reputation of Bermuda, and the other was to attract these technology companies to the island. How did we do that? We introduced legislation. It was the Bermuda government some 3 years ago that decided if we could provide certainty as to how we in Bermuda treat digital assets, a definition I'll go into in a minute, and provide a level of credibility to those in the industry, if they could meet the Bermuda standard, that would attract certain businesses and individuals in the area. So we introduced two regimes. One dealt with the issuance of tokens and coins, digital coins, which is not for discussion here. And the other was to regulate the sector of people who are actually providing digital asset business. So I think it's worth going into the question of, well, what is a digital asset from a Bermuda perspective? There are lots of terms going on around the world: cryptocurrency, virtual asset, digital asset. And digital asset actually has a very wide interpretation. And actually a virtual asset is a digital asset, but not all digital assets are virtual assets. So I'm going to quote from the legislation that a digital asset, what is it? It means anything that exists in a binary format. It comes with the right to use it and includes a digital representation of value that is used as a medium of exchange, a unit of account, or a store of value, and is not legal tender, whether or not denominated in legal tender, or is intended to represent assets such as debt or equity in the promoter, or is otherwise intended to represent any kind of asset or a right in that asset, or is intended to provide access to an application, service, a product by means of distributed ledger technology. So that's the definition of what a digital asset is in Bermuda. The question for everybody really, and hopefully for those who clicked on this video, is, are you conducting digital asset business activities? If you are, you then need a license under Bermuda regulation. So what's a digital asset business? Well, it's the business of providing digital business activities to the general public. And they encompass 7 different activities. And I'll again quote from the Act. It is either issuing, selling, redeeming virtual coins, tokens, or any other form of digital asset. And that doesn't account for yourself doing it. So if you're raising your own capital as a company, you come under the Digital Asset Issuance Act, not the Digital Asset Business Act. This is for service providers to them doing that. Or operating as a payment service provider business, that's using digital assets, which includes the provision of services for the transfer of funds. Or operating as a digital asset exchange, acting as a digital asset trust service provider, offering custodial wallet services, operating as a digital asset derivative exchange provider, or operating as a digital asset service vendor. Now, the last one there, digital asset services vendor, encompasses a number of activities, including where someone actually has the power to conduct transactions with digital assets for and on behalf of other people, somebody who has a power of attorney over someone else's digital assets, where you're a market maker, or if you are a digital asset benchmark administrator, and that's to do with indices. So if you're conducting any one of those businesses, then you are conducting business in and from Bermuda, then you need a license. Now, the key thing is from Bermuda. This license will provide you with credibility in the sense that you have met certain criteria set down by the regulations, and you are regulated by the Bermuda Monetary Authority to a standard similar to that found in all other industries that Bermuda is renowned for. Reinsurance insurance particularly stands out. This credibility then allows you to act in the space of digital assets and in the sector as a whole, knowing that you are regulated and being able to tell your customers, your clients, and your service providers that you are regulated. So now we know what that is. How do you get a license if you need one? The application procedure itself is quite simple, but the documentation behind it and the requirements are quite complex. I'm not going to go a deep dive, but what I will do here is to tell you the fundamental framework in which you need to build your application. And I highly recommend that you do seek legal advice in terms of building that out and delivering it. The first thing you need is your business plan. Now, before you even approach a professional advisor, I recommend you have a business plan in place. Now, this business plan initially needs to basically tell your service provider, your professional advisor, and eventually the BMA, what it is you're trying to achieve. What are your business objectives? But it also needs to set out how you're going to achieve that, why you want to achieve that. It also needs to set out all then the criteria behind how you can show the BMA that you can prudently manage the risks that are within your business. Now, they will obviously differ from business to business. As you see, there were 7 different types of activities that could be conducted and would need a license for. But your business plan is the first point of call. From the business plan, you then need to conduct a business risk assessment. The business risk assessment is an actual assessment of your business. It's not the AML assessment, which is something I'll come on to. The business risk assessment is literally looking at every little stage of your business where you conduct business with the customer. Look at the customer experience every step of the way. And you need to analyze the risk of that, not just from the client's perspective and customer, but your risk perspective. How does it affect your business as a whole? How might it put your business at risk? That's what they're looking for in your business risk assessment. And then how you then are going to mitigate those risks and the plans in order to make sure that those don't occur, or if they do, how you react. Then you've got your Aml Atf Framework. That includes both a policy and procedure, but also oversight and monitoring. You need to explain how you're going to implement it to the standard required in Bermuda. That will also include an AML risk assessment, which is an ongoing procedure once you're licensed, and that is to risk assess your customers and the third parties you deal with. You will also need to consider and explain any cybersecurity infrastructure and ensure that it is audited by an independent contractor. There's a minimal capital requirement of $100,000 or more, depending upon the complexity and size of your business. But at least for Class M and F licenses, it's $100,000. There's also a head office requirement. The size and complexity and cost of that will depend upon, again, the type of business, but you will certainly need to have a presence in Bermuda of some sort. You also need to appoint a senior representative. That person is somebody who will be responsible. They have to be approved by the BMA first, but they will be responsible for alerting the BMA to any particular activity that happened with the business, that it ceased trading, if it becomes insolvent, or if it's involved in criminal activities or breaches any conditions of the Act or its license. There's also some financials and predictions that you'll need to include, and then there's the fee. The application fee is a little over $2,000, and then the annual fee for the license varies, depending on what activity you're doing. But at the low end, it starts at around $15,000 and currently can go up to as much as $450,000. Your market maker would be the one starting down at the bottom for $15,000, and a full-on fledged exchange would be probably up at the top end. But that's the maximum. The actual fee is also calculated on a percentage of your revenue or predicted revenue. Your legal advisor and the BMA can be more determinative about what that would mean for you in your business. It's also worth noting that the BMA themselves have discretion to ask further questions once your application's gone in. So don't be put off when you get a response that includes questions for more clarity. What the BMA is looking to do is to really hold you accountable for what you're trying to present to them as a credible business that's been managed prudently. Now, hopefully that's given you a fundamental or an introductory synopsis of what the digital asset business means, whether it applies to you, and if it does, how to get going about that license. If you have any further questions, then you can contact me or any of my colleagues who will be in some of the chat rooms and networking sessions throughout the conference. You can also go to our website, or you can find us on LinkedIn. On our website also, there is a global guide to technology innovation that Appleby produces, in which there is a specific Bermuda chapter that's authored by my colleagues here in Bermuda. And it will go into much more detail about the Digital Asset Business Act and set out some more fundamentals for you for your interest. And if you have any further inquiries, do not hesitate to reach out. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.